Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanMuscle.com, and today we're taking a closer look at the MP Concepts hood scoop with the LED chase lighting available for the 2018 and newer GT and EcoBoost Mustang. You should be checking this out for your own Mustang if you're looking to customize the front end of your vehicle with a faux hood scoop, one that adds a ton of aggression to your vehicle's appearance with some LED accent lighting. First and foremost, guys, this of course is not going to be for everyone. LED lighting inside of the hood scoop just won't be for everyone, but if you're interested in this super custom, very unique look to a hood scoop, this is a great way to go at a very affordable price. Now, as you can see, this particular hood scoop comes in a black finish, not necessarily a gloss black painted finish. This is more of an unfinished look right out of the box. It is paintable. Some guys do like to mount it up like we have here, just right out of the box with no paint. Either way, still looks pretty good on top of the vehicle's hood. Now, this guy does have the LED chase accent lighting. Chase being that it runs side to side, left to right. This is very similar to a very famous movie car from the 80s, which shall remain nameless. But this guy here, of course, is very, very recognizable. It's worth noting before we go forward that the LED chase lighting here that you see in red is not necessarily street legal. This is meant for off-road use, car show applications, things like that. So make sure you have it off when you're driving on the streets from red light to red light. Now, as far as operating the chase LED here, there is a key fob included in the kit that you can use to turn it on and off. There's only one button, so it's super straightforward. Just click it once for on and once again for off. Now, this guy is made from a super lightweight, very durable ABS plastic construction. Now, ABS plastic is an extremely common material used in aftermarket exterior styling parts, especially when it comes to hood scoops and things like that, rear spoilers and such. So it is a very durable material and it is very lightweight, so you don't have to worry about adding a ton of weight to the front end. It's worth noting also, and it goes without saying, I think, that the LED chase lighting is a faux hood opening. This is not a functional hood scoop, obviously. So no aerodynamic qualities to it. There's not going to be anything for heat extraction or anything like that. This is pure styling, 100%. With that, it does require some drilling. You're going to be drilling 3 holes for the mounting studs, and it's also going to use 3M automotive bonding tape, so it's a double security action happening there. The 3M tape will go on both sides and the back near your cowl, so that's going to help make sure it sticks in place, and then 3 studs will go right through the top of the hood into the underside of the engine bay underneath the hood liner, so you won't even see them when the hood's popped, which I actually really like. With that, the difficulty does get bumped up, which I'll talk about in just a second. Know that this guy comes in right around 200 bucks, so again, not the most expensive exterior styling piece. As a matter of fact, it's pretty affordable in the realm of some of the hood scoop options and the hood scoop stylings. Now, the install will get 3 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter due to the modification, and the LED chase lighting is going to require some wiring. Now, it uses a control module and a separate key fob that you'll have separate that'll be able to activate this on and off. With that, you'll have to wire it into a ground source, typically your battery under the hood, and a 12-volt ignition source. You could run it to the battery, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. You just want to make sure that you're remembering to turn this guy off so it doesn't drain your battery. Now, I'll walk you through the install process. The wiring will be a little bit custom, and we'll get to that toward the end of the install, but I'll walk you through using the template to mark your drilling locations. We'll drill through with our certain drill bit sizes, and then we'll move on to bolting this down. What do you say we get started? All right, tools used in this install include a drill, a variety of drill bits, scissors and a knife, 1/4-inch ratchet, 10mm deep socket, 3mm hex socket or Allen key, center hole punch, Phillips head screwdriver, measuring tape, painter's tape, a variety of smaller zip ties is recommended, soap and water mixture in a squirt bottle, and finally a clean microfiber. All right, to kick things off, really the only uninstall we have to do is under the hood here, we're gonna take off this hood insulation liner. Now, you're gonna use a panel removal tool, or at least this is what I recommend. A flathead would work. This just makes life easier. We have about 15 of these plastic rivets or the plastic push pin clips holding this guy in all around the perimeter of the liner and a couple of them in the middle. So let's get those off. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is basically just hook this guy in here. And you of course wanna make sure your hand's here so this doesn't drop into the engine bay. And just pop that guy off. It's super simple. There is a bunch of them, so have a little patience. Let's get the rest of them off. So just open that guy up a little bit and then put this in and pry it off. All right, so that'll fall and we can set this aside. All right, so the next step here, we have our template. Now this template is gonna help us not only line up where we need to put the hood scoop, but it's also got the markings on the template here to show us where exactly we're drilling into the hood. Now, before we can do anything with that, we do have to cut it out. As you can see, there's a little scissor down there. So grab some scissors, cut along the black line all the way around. You wanna make sure you're cutting this as perfect as you possibly can to make sure the template is accurate. So we're gonna cut this guy out, we'll come back and clean off the hood and then set it up for some drilling. Before we head over to the table to assemble some components of our hood scoop, we want to make sure the hood is actually clean and has some time to dry as well. I have a soap and water mixture in a squirt bottle here and a clean microfiber. I highly recommend just soap and water. Things like a detailer leave a chemical residue behind, not necessarily something you want before putting 3M on your hood, just because it'll prohibit some really good bonding between the two. So soap and water works best. I'm just gonna spray the hood down a little bit and then wipe it with a clean microfiber. All right, so now we're on the table here and we have our hood scoop face down. Now underneath, I have a bunch of microfibers just because you don't want to get it scratched up on the table here. First thing we're gonna do is assemble our light. Now this LED light doesn't look like much now, but when plugged in, it will look pretty darn cool. What we're gonna have to do is go to the front of the hood scoop where you have the curved end. So you have a curved end and a more flat surface. The curved end's the front. You're gonna take this guy upside down and you're basically gonna feed the wiring in. And there's an open cutout hole here so that can feed through, just like that. And we'll plug that in here. Now for this, we're just gonna basically seat it in the open slot, and you're gonna push in so that the holes here, all along, match up with the pre-drilled holes on the inside of the scoop. All right, so you're gonna push this all the way in so it seats all the way in. You'll see the holes start to line up. Once they do, you're gonna grab the Phillips head screws included in the kit and tighten them down. So I'm gonna start here. All right, and then very simply, we have our module here that goes to the open-ended power and ground wires. This is gonna help with the actual key fob included in the kit. Now this guy we're just gonna set off to the side for now, but what we are gonna do is plug these guys in. Just like that. All right, next up, we're gonna take the 3 studs included in the kit and insert them into the threaded holes and mounting points underneath the hood scoop. Now this is pretty simple. They're just gonna thread right on, and then I'll follow that up with a jam nut that'll sit right on top there, and that's a 10mm. Before I do this, this isn't completely necessary, might even be a little overkill, but it's not a bad idea to have blue Loctite on deck and just to hit it with a very small dab, just to make sure that the studs stay tight. All right, so I'm gonna thread this guy down by hand. It's not a bad idea to also make sure you're threading this down with the Allen or hex side facing up, so you can use a 3mm Allen key or hex socket to just tighten it all the way down. Now, you don't want to go too far, you don't want to strip it out, just get it nice and snug. Do that same thing for the other 2. All right, next up, what we're gonna do is install our 10mm nut. Thread that guy on by hand all the way down. Grab your 10 socket. Do the same thing for the other 2. Next step, we're gonna take the 3M tape roll included in the kit. We are gonna have to cut these strips to length. We're basically gonna put a strip along the edge here on both sides and the back side, but not the front. So let's take the roll. I'm gonna peel off a piece of this guy and I'm gonna stick that right here on the edging and just work my way back all the way to the end. And you just wanna make sure when you're laying this down that it's not overlapping the edge. You don't wanna see it once the hood scoop is installed. All right, so once you make it to the end there, I'm gonna take my knife and I'm gonna carefully just cut the end of this. just like that. All right, now I'm not gonna peel off the backing just yet. We're gonna leave that in place. Just make sure you're putting firm pressure all around so it gets a good bond. Repeat this for the other 2 sections. All right, so at this point, we cut our template out, we have it placed on our hood. Now this is gonna be a huge trial and error process. You wanna make sure that you're putting this right about the center of your hood, and you can use these hood lines as a marker. There's one on each side, directly between the 2 vents. Using that as a guide along with the back side of the hood will help tremendously. And this is where cutting that thing out comes in play. Now this guy you wanna make sure is even, you wanna make sure it's straight, and you wanna make sure the center bolt here is aligned with the center line of your hood. Now we've got it in a pretty good spot. I'm just gonna finish taping it off. We wanna make sure there isn't a ton of play in the template itself. We want it to be completely flush so that it doesn't move when we're doing our drilling. Now painter's tape for this is gonna be your best bet. You don't wanna damage the paint at all. All right, so right now we have the hood popped, and I have 2 blocks of wood here with microfibers over them. This, I mean, you can use anything for this really, but we just want to prop the hood up so when we drill through the top of the hood, we don't end up hitting the engine cover. You want to put enough space between this and the bottom of the inside of the hood here so the drill bit doesn't go all the way through and touch something in the engine bay. So I got the microfibers there just so we don't scratch the paint under the hood there, and this is just propping it up enough. Now we still want to be able to comfortably get to these holes there, which I think we have this perfect position here. Next, I'm going to use a center punch. This is going to help me mark the dead center of the holes in the template before I drill my pilot hole. That way our drill bit has a starting point and won't dance around trying to make that first initial drill. So I'm going to put that right in the center of the crosshairs and click it down. And that's just putting a little dent in the hood so we can start our bit there. All right, I'm going to do that for the other 2. All right, so the first hole we're gonna drill is with an 1/8 inch drill bit. We'll then bump up to a 9/32 for the final hole. All right, so we just got through the first layer. You have to go through the inner and the outer hood. And we've gotten through the first outer, and that's why you need to prop the hood up, because when you go through the inner hood, you don't wanna hit anything underneath. Just make sure you're going completely straight. All right, so you pop the hood, you can see we came through, but didn't touch anything underneath. All right, still using that 1/8 inch bit, I'm gonna do the other 2 holes. All right, so now we've got our 9/32 drill bit, and we're gonna finish it up, drilling right through that same hole. All right, so we got our holes drilled. We test fit our hood scoop, which I definitely recommend doing. Make sure the studs drop through properly. Now what we're gonna do is we have to drill a 4th hole, not on the template, for our wiring. Now, the wiring for that LED chase in the front of the hood scoop there has to run inside the hood scoop, and then we gotta drop it down under the hood to hook it up to wherever your power supply is coming from, typically the battery. Now what we're gonna do here is find a spot to drill that 4th hole. Now, this is personal preference. You can go anywhere, which is why it's not included in the template. I like this little tab right in the center here. Now you'll see that it's basically dead center between these 2 holes that we drilled, right there. Now, for this hole, I'm gonna measure the distance on the top side of the hood between these two, cut it in half, and I'm gonna drill right in that center point. That way it'll come right through this tab. So let's get that done. All right guys, now I'm gonna drill my hole to feed our wiring through. Now of course, like I said, this is personal preference as to where you do your drilling. I just put a piece of painter's tape here just to show you guys exactly where I'm going, halfway between these 2 points and a little bit more forward to go through that little cutout or the square cutout in the second layer of the hood. Now I'm gonna go in with an 1/8 inch bit here and then bump it up a size to make sure that our wiring will fit. So within our test fitting, we saw that the studs don't actually drop through the entire hood to come through these holes. So with that, we either need the studs to be longer, which obviously not gonna work, or two, we need to make these holes bigger so we can get a socket within them to tighten down our 10mm nuts. So what I'm gonna do is just make the inner holes, not the outer holes on the outside of the hood. I'm gonna make these just a little bit bigger so we can fit a 10mm socket in them. When you're doing this, it's a good idea to put something over the engine bay to make sure the metal shavings don't fall in. All right, so next up we're gonna feed our wiring from the engine bay to the outside of the hood and then plug it into the connector under the hood scoop before installing it. Now, I depinned the connector just so we didn't have to drill a big enough hole to fit the entire connector through. I find that to be a little bit easier. You can use a paper clip for that sometimes, or even just a pick if you have some specialty tools to do that. So I depinned it. I'm gonna feed them up through this hole. All right, next step guys, I wanna make note here that I peeled our 3M tape backing off halfway and just hung it over the side. That way we can sort of get it installed so it sticks in place and we know we like where we want it, and then we're gonna peel it off in the rest of the 3M backing. Now, before we do that, we of course have to plug it in. That's why we fed this through from the inside to the out. I taped down the other side of the connector just so when it's installed, they're not tapping on the inside when you're driving. I also am gonna take this connector and just plug it in here. Just like that. And if you want, you can tape the rest of it back, but it does get to be a little bit of a tight squeeze. I'm gonna install this onto the hood now, dropping the studs through the holes with the help of my buddy, just to make sure that we're not scratching the paint with the studs. You wanna make sure it goes right into the holes. All right, at this point, once you know you like the position of the hood scoop, you're basically going to make sure it's aligned properly, peel off that 3M tape backing, and put pressure all around. All right, and now we can bolt it down from the underside. All right, at this point, I've got my nut here in my 10mm socket, and the key is not to drop it inside of the hood. I'm gonna thread this guy on first from the socket. Basically just repeating that for the rest of the studs. Guys, next step, we're just gonna finish feeding our wiring and then you can hook it up to where you see fit. Now this wiring here, I'm actually just gonna zip tie right to our washer fluid line. That way it's up and out of the way, and then we'll do another one right here. And then if you want, you can do it at the bottom and then feed the wiring back. All right, so now we can put our hood liner back on. All right, so next for our hood liner here, we're just gonna pop this guy back up into position. I'm gonna put one of these push pins back on at the top and one at the bottom just to hold it in place. All right, now for the wiring here, it is personal preference. You can run it wherever you see fit. You wanna make sure the black is going to a proper ground. Typically your battery is the best bet. When it comes to the power, I'm just gonna run it to the battery positive terminal to show you guys what this is gonna look like. Now, running it to the power of your battery here on the positive side could be risky because if it doesn't fully turn off once your vehicle's off, it can drain your battery. It might be worthwhile running it to a switch, maybe something in the fuse box here that actually cycles on and off with the ignition. So you wanna get a 12-volt ignition source. I'm gonna run it to the battery again just for demonstration purposes to show you guys what this is gonna look like. All right, and from there, guys, you're good to go. Well guys, that's gonna wrap up my review and install for the MP Concepts hood scoop with the LED chase lighting, available for the 18 and newer GT and EcoBoost Mustang. You can get yours exclusively right here at AmericanMuscle.com.